Hey gang, I wanted to share something with you that's kind of rocking my morning. And there's a little bit of a story, there's a little bit of background, so bear with me. What happened this morning is kind of confusing and awesome, and I just have to throw my shoulders up and go, yeah, there it is. And it has to do with gifting. Now, so about a year ago, my wife and I were talking about, because 2 years ago we lost our golden retriever. Maverick was, I can't even, anyway, he was family. And we had been talking about, like, could we ever, what are we gonna get another golden retriever that's gonna be like? I mean, the shoes that dog would have to fill are pretty big. So anyway, my wife and I were like, we're just gonna have to we're just gonna wait. No big deal, and God willing, there's plenty of life left, and whatever. Anyway, we are just not cat people, not part of the program. Especially my wife, who's like, I would even go so far as to say anti-cat. I get a text message from my wife and it says, you have to go check out this cat at PetSmart. And I was like, what? Let me read that again. Go check out a cat at PetSmart. Are you out of your mind? But I said I would go, and I get to PetSmart, and I go in, and I go to the cat area. I know where the cats are for adoption. And there are a couple of cages where there's cats bipping and bopping around, and there's one cage where there's clearly a cat in the back, but then there's another one in the front kind of plunking around and being a kitten and super adorable. And anyway, another family came in kind of at the same time as me, and they opened that cage for that family, and they played with that little kitten, and it was super adorable. I mean, it's walking across my shoulders and then down onto the kids and around the room and then on the ceiling. And it was crazy. It was a wild little kitten. And then kind of as we were playing with that kitten, I looked in the back towards where this other cat was. And so came to find out that cat in the back was this kitten's mom. And her story was incredible. So this cat had already had 2 litters. She lost her first litter, unfortunately, and then the second one was successful, and this kitten that was hanging onto the ceiling tiles was one of those kittens. And the vibe that this mom cat gave off was like so protective, maternal, but also like get me out of here. And she was just sitting in the back, and the thing that caught me was any amount of ambient light that was available around was being caught by her eyes and being reflected back, but they were green. Her eyes were this like green, yellow, luminescent almost, incredible eyes that literally made me gasp. And I was like, I can't believe they're that striking on this little cat, and this mama cat. Eventually she came out. She came toward my hand, and I was introducing myself just like through, I've learned that around animals I have to call myself first, and then through intention they'll kind of join in you if they want to. Well, she did. She came up and she just like rubbed her head against my hand, and while her little one's plopping around the room, she's just kind of like watchful and but also maternal, and also like really kept like checking in with me. And the feeling that I got was like, the feeling I got from this cat was, let's go home. This is a year ago. And yeah, I just said, like, right there, I said to the person, what do I have to do to sign her out? And they were like, yeah, here's the process. Here's it. Here's a $900 cat tree that like you have available to you. Here's all this. Yeah, great. This is all of it. Take all of it. I was in a trance. And also, not a cat family. Wife's not a cat person. I texted her like, I don't know what to say. She's like, right? Eventually, over the last year, Raina has become our family member, and she's incredible. And she also came with another cat. This adoption agency was like, hey, we got another kitten in mind, and like they go well in pairs, so you know we think she'd go she'd go well with Raina. She's coming up from Central Illinois. She was a barn cat. Again, not a cat person, don't really know what that means, but turns out a barn cat basically means that this it's just sharp. Let's just put it that way. This barn cat, it was sharp. They're like, this cat's name is, she's a kitten. She was found in a barn in Central Illinois, and her name is Terry. It's like, all right, who's naming these cats? And B, sounds good. Set it up. You know more about adoption. I'm going to trust you. You are the artist here. You choose your brush. I will provide the catnip. I'll provide the catnip. You provide the cat. So a year ago that happened, and over the last year they've become incredible family members. Terry is now Ellie, and Ellie is a psycho. But Ellie goes well with Raina because Raina's the queen bee and is not to be messed with, but she's fair. Ellie is not. Ellie's not. I never thought I'd be on YouTube talking about my cats, but here we are, and they're amazing. So about 2 weeks ago, Raina's very curious about the world outside. Ellie is not, but Raina decided that over the last couple of months, she's like, I want to see beyond the reef. And we live where there's coyotes, there's owls, foxes. It's a very rural area where I've witnessed rabbits being taken, and like in the blink of an eye, a predator bird is just funk, and then like in the blink of an eye, this rabbit's neck is the rabbit's dead, and then the owl goes off to have a meal with its family. Our cats are not that much bigger than said rabbits, and I've seen this happen multiple times. That's not even counting like what a coyote would do, or even worse, a pack of them, and they always travel in packs. There's like 9 of them running around, and they're crazy. So I'm not willing to risk it. They're inside cats. It is what it is. They have their claws, but they're inside cats. But we have to be careful because Raina will, if she hears the garage door now, she knows that's where she can get to the outside. She can get beyond the reef. And we were closing up for the night. It was about 9 o'clock, and my wife and I went upstairs, and we're just spending time upstairs. At about 11:30, I was like, we haven't heard from Raina in a while, and I'm positive. Like, I have a habit of looking. I was the last person in and out of the house. I look at my feet when I leave. The problem is that Raina's dark. Like, I explained to you, when I first met her, all I could see was her eyes, because the rest of her, she's got this like iridescent sort of reflective fur that she sort of blends in with her surroundings. If it's dark, you can't see her, which makes trying to like walk around a dark house hell, because you can like step on her tail, and it's not good. So it became very clear that Raina was not in the house, and from 11:30 until about 1, I want to say 1 o'clock, I looked and I looked and I looked, and I'm telling you, I mean, we have a house, and I looked in every single corner of the house, and the only way that Raina could have been inside was if Raina was hiding. If Raina was hiding from me actively and then squirting out the room that I had just come in to check, and then quickly squirting back into the room that I had just checked, because I went systematically through my house, room to room. And my wife was like, she's here. She'll show up in the morning. She's probably sleeping. The thing that she will not sleep through is there are these little like catnip lollipops, and if you pull those out, if you think about pulling them out, Raina will be at your heels, and she'll be like, the thought goes through your mind. She's like, she could be anywhere in the house. and she's going to be there. So I was worried that she has gotten somehow injured and is unable to help herself out of whatever situation she's in. Start making stories in my mind about what's going on, and there's no way I'm going to sleep. My wife's sleeping, but she works way harder than I do and deserves her rest. I'm being very serious. Like, I'll take care of it. I'm going to find Raina. It's like 1:30 now. I've been looking for hours. I don't even know. Hours. I'll take a quick break. I'll look. And at this point, what's made me kind of sadder is that Ellie has joined in my search. Now, Ellie is usually, she's like an ankle biter. You don't know. I mean, Ellie will hang out behind the banister rails, and she'll catch you as you're walking up the staircase. She'll catch your shoulder and like raptor claw, just because I don't know, maybe she thinks it's funny, or it's a game, or she makes it very clear why tiger handlers get fatally injured, because Ellie plus 800 pounds, she's ripping your carotid. That's Ellie's MO usually. But at this point in my evening, Ellie is at my feet, walking from room to room with me, and poking her head in the room and looking around going, like a sonar ping. So I'm getting a little bit more upset. And you can see how, I'm a sensitive feller. It hits me. And it hits me all of a sudden, what the last year of our lives has been blessed by this animal that I can't even describe how wonderful she is, because it's beyond animal. It's a soul. Her eyes are the gateway to it, and she's just incredible. But the thought of not having her in our home was devastating to me. It was devastating. I'm telling you, my search, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what I mean by when I went searching, I put my tactical vest on. I put on my headlamp. I had my high-power flashlight, binoculars, and my thermal scope. A handheld thermal camera, not just scope, thermal camera, and I'm walking the neighborhood. I've walked miles at this point. I've looked in every tree. I've looked along the foundation of every house. I'm shocked the police weren't called. And I've walked the foundation of our house dozens of times. And I have checked in every tree. I have checked every square inch of space along our homes, our neighbors' homes, while rattling the catnip container. It became clear to me at that point, I was convinced that Raina had been taken. And I got upset. I actually, I'm walking, and here I am. I'm a tall dude. I'm 6'4". I'm walking through the neighborhood. I look like RoboCop. I've got all this stuff on, and thank goodness, it's dark and there's no one out in the neighborhood, because, again, the cops would have been called for sure. And here I am in tears. I'm walking up to the front of our house, and I just dropped my shoulders, and I kind of sat down on our front step, our front chair, and I just said, I can't describe the pain in my chest, but if you can feel it, if you can see where I'm coming from, I beg you, whatever it takes, can you please help bring her home? Yeah. And I just explained what she meant to us and what she means to our family. And if there's anything that they could do, I understand it's a long shot, but if I didn't want to, I said, I know you're busy. I don't want to involve you. And I know it's you guys are moving. It's the spring. You're busy stocking up food. I get it. But if there's anything you can do, here's what she looks like. And right when I did that, I got this flutter of just a little bing, ding, ding, ding. Oh. All right, I forgot where I left off. Got 19 phone calls. So I got a flutter. And do you guys remember in the Disney movies where like the old ones where like if a fairy would come fly by, that would it'd be like a little twinkling bell. But it was just like in my chest, and I just went, okay. I kept looking. I kept doing my thing, and I played the game in my head of like, you're nuts, dude. This is. Do you realize that you have left? At this point, I'm saying, in order to avoid the pain of inevitably telling your children that the cat's not here and you don't know why, you have imagined that imaginary forest friends are hearing you while you're crying and talking about your missing cat. That's the level of pain that you are experiencing having to tell your kids about Raina. Crying in your front yard, asking an imaginary forest friend for help. And that is a reflection of just how painful the morning's gonna be. So I'm even more like, yeah, you're right, dude. What are you doing? What are you doing? I stood up, and then I had this moment of like, well, if there's any chance you're gonna find her, there's more of a chance you're gonna find her by continuing on this path than giving up, going to sleep, and not really sleeping, and being afraid of the morning and what that's going to bring. You can give up and guarantee yourself continued pain. You can guarantee that that situation is going to continue, or you can say, I'm just not going to stop. I got up out of my seat and I did another loop around the house. And earlier when I was going around my house, I had noticed these garden lights in my backyard, and they're these little solar powered, twinkle bulbs, little fairy bulbs that are around the backyard. And they're solar powered, where if you cover the solar panel, the light will turn off. And I was noticing that these lights in the backyard, they caught my attention because they were blinking, and they're not supposed to. They're on a continuous. They're either on or off, but they were blinking in like what looked like a Morse pattern, and I was like, this is odd. So they caught my eye. So I went to the far back of my backyard. I went far back, and then I did a couple of more laps, and I noticed, I've got my binoculars, I've got my thermal, and I'm using them, but I'm also like, I've already looked here, and like, what point? What's the point in continuing if like I'm just doing anyway? I kept playing that game, and then at some time, I think it was like 1:45 or 2 in the morning, I noticed that like I've done everything I can do. I'm delirious. I'm delirious because I'm, imagining things, trying to make sense out of like Morse code on my garden lighting. I mean, that's when I come in and I'm like, all right, I know you're a woo, but like, come on, let's go to sleep. Come on, let's go to sleep. It's time. Let's get to bed. But I noticed the light one more time, and I said, all right, I'm going to walk to the backyard. So I go to the backyard, and I go stand near this light that's been flickering, and it stopped flickering. And now it's on consistent. And I'm in the far back of my yard, which is probably like 25 yards away from my back deck. And if you've ever heard, I don't know, if you ever had the misfortune of leaving the propane of a gas grill on while one burner is activated, but another burner is just spilling propane into the tank, into the grill area. Well, sometimes what will happen is when the other gas is finally ignited by the one burner that was on, it'll make a boom, like loud. And it's a very distinct noise. It's a very distinct like displacement of air, I want to say, because it's not that it's explosive, but it's just it's a full displacement of air. And that happened on my back deck. But I hadn't used this grill since the fall. This grill is not in use. It hadn't been moved. There's no reason. There's no propane exiting. There's no flame anywhere. It's the middle of the night. But it clearly caught my attention because I'm like, geez. And I look at my back door, which is right next to the grill, and sitting there with eyes the size of dinner plates and completely dilated pupils is Raina. With her eyes just enormous, and she's just sitting there like this with her shoulders up. And I look around and I'm, Ray, holy shit. I start crying, obviously. Like, look, I've got your treats. Here. I've got them. No movement. Like, nothing out of her. Like the human equivalent would be like, yeah, cool. I know. Cool. You've got some treats with you. Okay. I unwrapped one. Usually when I unwrap them, she's on top of my shoulders, like on my shoulder, like ready to take it out of my hand. She's sitting there. Moves her mouth up to it. Takes a bite. Okay. Takes another bite. Doesn't really want to be held. Just sitting there. I don't want to spook her because I don't know. I don't want to go grab her, and I don't know what she's been through. Takes another bite. She starts to kind of loosen up her shoulders a little bit. What's amazing I've learned about cats is, well, at least mine, is that their body language is everything. So they're explaining how they're feeling, kind of with their shoulders, with how tense they are and stuff. She finally kind of like settles in, and the interesting thing was she was by my back door, but that back door was locked, and it had been locked all day, all night. Yet she's by the back door. Interestingly, the back door is the one where there are not cameras. The front of the house has cameras, but the back does not. Yet, it would have been impossible for her to have gone out that back door because that door was closed and locked. And in fact, the inside of it has that protective insulation film to prevent heat loss during the cold months. So Raina's home, and I am overjoyed, and I'm just reintroducing her. I brought her inside. Ellie runs up to her and goes nose to nose, but Raina's like definitely spooked, big time spooked. Starts to kind of loosen up a little bit, and over like a half hour, she's just kind of like, okay, all right, I'm home. I put a big bowl of food in front of both of them, and they just kind of like sat on the counter and resynced. But what I know to be true is that I looked everywhere I could have physically looked for Raina. And when I asked for help, a set of very suspicious circumstances brought her right home. And to share my gratitude for this, I recently took an abalone shell and filled it with dragon's blood powder, sage, and tobacco. Part of when I do an offering like that, it's the way that I place the sage into the shell, and it's the way that I place the sprinkles of powder, it's the way that I place the tobacco and how I do it, and the directions of it starting, east, south, west, north, and how I'm thinking through what I appreciate and acknowledging my gratitude. And it's how I do it. But the way that I do it, there's not a blade of sage, there's not a blade of tobacco in there that I'm not placing myself. And I went outside with my gift and this offering, and I lit the smell of it. Sage and tobacco is like in my life, I've only ever known that combination to come in like a candle, but in real life, sage and tobacco is the best smell ever. Burnt, I think. And As today, as I was going to clean out that shell, inside of that shell, in the middle of those, in the blend of tobacco and sage, I found this. Now, it's a penny. I don't know how hot sage and tobacco gets when it is burnt, but I'm guessing it's not the 7 to 1100 degrees that's required to melt a penny. I don't know. Maybe it is. It's a very old penny, also. So it would have had to have been. That penny had to have entered the shell at some point after I placed it on the offering. I don't know where you stand in your journey with understanding these beings, and I understand it can be confusing because it's confusing for me. I can't pretend to know something, but all I can know for sure is the experiences that I continue to have lead me to knowing that I just don't know. And the more I've learned, the more I realize I don't know. So I thought I would share that with you. Thanks for coming on the road with me to do that. And here is to a lifetime of continuing to explore these things together. Here's a special girl. Hello. Taking a nap.